Hello, and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell Rabin, and we're very glad to have you joining us again today. Today we have invited back Burton Goldberg, who is renowned at this point worldwide for his extraordinary work on holistic medicine. And he is the publisher of this book, Alternative Medicine, The Definitive Guide. And at this point, even though this has sold many copies around the world, he's now getting extremely well known further for this work. This is a pioneering work in the treatment of cancer from a holistic point of view. The use of nutrition, diet, supplementation, chelation, ozone. Burton will be going into that. And let me just show you one other work that Burton has come up with relatively recently, and that is on headaches, what you can do yourself and what are the natural treatments for headaches. These things, as you know, have been riddling standard mainstream medicine for years, and you would think by now they would have come up with a solution. Well, they haven't, but guess what? Naturally practicing doctors, holistic doctors have, and this is what Burton has been championing for quite some time. So we're very pleased to have you on the show, Burton.
Good to be with you.
Pleasure to have you. Good. So on your rampage out there on the street, you're lecturing all over the country on radio shows, TV shows. What is the main message that you're giving to people?
America, you're being poisoned to death. We have an epidemic of cancer, and no one's talking about it. When you look at Chesapeake Bay and the Pfisteria, these fish rolling over and dying with ugly sores on them. You watch the daily news and you see frogs in 30 states without the proper amount of limbs mutating.
Yeah.
That's a microcosm of what's going on the planet and what's going on in our society.
And in our bodies.
Cancer is escalating at alarming rates. Breast Cancer Month on October
Yes.
is escalating at the rate of 1.3% a year. Today, breast cancer is 1 in 8 American women. And I want you to get a perspective of what's going on. If you have cancer, or you know someone with cancer, I would strongly recommend that you tune into this station right now, because you will hear things you probably have never heard before. Alternative medicine reverses cancer 180 degrees from mainstream medicine. But what I want to give you is the concept of what's going on with cancer, and particularly breast cancer. It's now 1 in 8 American women. In 1960, it was 1 in 14. In 1950, it was 1 in 20. And in 1900, 1 in 33 Americans, men, women, or children, had cancer of any kind, shape, or form. We have a Holocaust going on, and no one's talking about it. I did a show the other day in Orange County, California, and this doctor was debating me on cancer. She's a surgeon. And I asked her, what causes breast cancer? Her job is to lop them off. She looked at me very seriously and said, I don't know, and no one knows. And yet, in my book, Chapter 25 has 33 categories of the causes of cancer. 33 different categories. If you know the cause, you can remove the cause, feed the body's immune system, and guess what happens? Your body heals itself. That's how alternative medicine works. In mainstream medicine, all they know how to do is kill the tumor, and that's important. But they don't know how to detoxify the body so that when the tumor dies, the poisons keep revolving around in the blood supply.
You know, the other shocking thing, Burton, is that you say they don't know how, but in fact, the medical literature is quite full of prescriptions for health. They have known about mind-body techniques. They have known about the role of vitamin C going back to and since Linus Pauling, and they have had this information actually at their fingertips, but it goes ignored. So in a sense, it's almost adding insult to injury. It's not from a lack of knowledge.
Alternative medicine is a system of medicine. the number one thing you got to do is pull off the poisons. What caused that tumor in the first place? Well, it wasn't a chemotherapy deficiency. When you have a headache, it's not an aspirin deficiency.
Although there are many interests that would have us think that.
Of course, there's a tremendous amount of antagonism by the mainstream medicine in alternative medicine. How dare you prove us wrong? But the New England Journal of Medicine, within the last 2 months, came out with a leading story that their $30 billion war on cancer is a bust. And they now say, Dr. Baylor in the University of Chicago, who wrote the article, that they must now start looking at alternatives. And that's what Alternative Medicine Definitive Guide to Cancer is about.
Yeah.
I went to 33 doctors who successfully reverse cancer using alternative therapies, the system of alternative medicine. It's very important to get this concept of the system. Find the poisons, open the organs that detoxify the blood and the bodily fluids, the liver, the kidney, the adrenals, the pancreas. You must cleanse the organs. You must pull out the poisons. The colon. If you don't have 2 to 3 bowel movements a day, you're constipated. Now, I know most people think that's absurd, but it can easily be achieved. The information is not only in this book and many, many others. You go to a health food store, they'll give you the products that will help you achieve this regularity. Why is it important? Because the colon is the seat of, and the small intestine is the seat of the immune system. And if your immune system malfunctions, you don't have anything. You can't withstand. You know the old theory of the germ theory, that these outside critters come into the body and kill us. The body's terrain, the body's soil, is really what sets it up. We're always being bombarded with cancer cells.
All the time.
And all kinds of pathogens.
Do you know there was a study that showed that when people eat pork, that their blood 20 minutes later has a profile of cancer?
Mm-hmm.
So we go through these stages, but with a healthy immune system, it's warded off and business goes on as usual. But that's how close we all are, in a sense, to dealing with and having within us all sorts of pretty serious pathogens.
One of the major poisons in the body is mercury, and one of the most important major sources is the silver fillings that these dentists put in your mouth.
That's for sure.
Dentistry plays an enormous role in alternative cancer treatments. Any physician, I believe, who doesn't pay attention to the dentistry, not only the mercury fillings, but infections under the gum, that are only visible in only 50% of the cases with X-ray, root canals, the electrolytic action between the metals. Mm-hmm. Any physician that doesn't pay attention to the fact that the teeth are connected to the rest of the body. I'll never forget a case of a man in Arizona who had excruciating pain from his prostate cancer. And we have devices in alternative medicine that we discuss in the book called electrodermal screening, where you tap into the meridian system of the Chinese. It's the basis of acupuncture, and so I know you're an acupuncturist and you know all about it. Mainstream medicine doesn't even report on it. It's like it doesn't exist. A river of energy that the Chinese have been using for 4,000 years. So it's no new age, airy-fairy concept. The French and Koreans have charted it with isotopes. That's how you work with acupuncture. And everyone knows that it works in most of the cases. It takes away your pain or relieves or balances the body.
Oh, yeah. Now, even if it worked in just 2 cases, it would mean that it needed to be taken seriously as a medical modality. Well, otherwise, it would just be an anomaly?
I think acupuncture is coming into the mainstream now. More and more insurance companies are starting to acquire it. But we need more than just acupuncture. Acupuncture is essential. Total Chinese medicine is essential because in Chinese or Oriental medicine, acupuncture is only 10% of the quotient, the balance of the herbs and the reading of the pulses and the diagnosing. But I was telling you about this man with excruciating pain.
Yes, in Arizona.
And they discovered by using this electric dermal screening device, using the meridian system, that the tooth that sat on his prostate meridian because it goes through the breast and it goes through the ovaries and it goes through the prostate, was the tooth was infected, affecting the prostate. And the instant that tooth was removed, the man's prostate pain disappeared. That shows you that the knee bone is connected to the head
thigh bone. Exactly. It's the governing vessel that goes all the way right down the spine that would connect to his prostate. And it's just one of the central meridian
now,
that everyone knows about in Chinese medicine.
One of our doctors in Switzerland, Dr. Rao, an MD, and by the way, all of our doctors are licensed physicians, they're MDs or DOs or oncologists, some are naturopaths, some are chiropractors, but most of them are MDs and oncologists. Dr. Rao in Switzerland finds that 90 to 95% of his breast cancer patients have a dental involvement, infections under the gum or a root canal or the mercury amalgam problem.
Yep.
And I want to explain this to people, because, and particularly to the dentists out there. This mercury, when you chew or dry brush, or you chew or you drink coffee, microbit by microbit leaves the filling, the silver filling, they call it an amalgam. It's over 50% mercury. Silver is about 25%. And it goes through the body and goes into the ganglia, which are all through the body. They're part of the parasympathetic nervous system. And when it goes into the ganglia, it insults the ganglia and it tightens. And so the blood supply going through the ganglia to the breast or to the prostate, and prostate cancer and breast cancer are quite similar diseases. The diseases of fatty tissue. Also, the blood supply going in gets restricted, and the lymph system. The basis of our immune system is the lymph system, which is totally ignored by mainstream medicine, except to rip it out when they're doing mastectomies. They don't know how to liquefy it. And in the book, Alternative Medicine, Definitive Guide to Cancer, we tell you of the forms of jumping on a trampoline can help.
Lymphocyzing.
Lymphocyzing can help liquefy or fractionalize the molecules.
And move the lymph.
And allow the toxins to leave the body.
Right.
Particularly when you're killing the tumor if you're using chemotherapy.
Not to mention, this is the area of the largest number of lymph nodes, which is very close to the gums and the teeth.
And under the arm. So when you use aluminum chloride underarm deodorant, that insults the lymph system, which is directly connected to the breast.
That's right. Yeah. We are talking with Burton Goldberg, the author, co-author of this definitive book, Alternative Medicine, The Definitive Guide, and of cancer as well. He's done a fabulous amount of research, has lined up a major series of doctors, oncologists, and others who recognize the importance of holistic treatment, that the body is a totality, that you do not treat in parts. You have to treat the whole. One must be detoxified and then build from there, empowering the body to heal itself. That's the game, folks. That's the game, isn't it?
I think it's important for the public to realize that this is not a disease of the aged alone. I'm 71 years old, and when I was born, cancer was the 10th cause of death in the United States of children. Today, cancer is the 2nd cause of death, both times behind accidents. 10th cause of death in children. Now, what's happened between the chemicals and the pesticides and herbicides and heavy metals? Our job is to give you the proof of what causes these diseases and how you can overcome them, give you direction, because we interview physicians. Everything we say in our books come from physicians who have clinically proven success in reversing these health conditions. And the good news here is this. We tell you the bad news, that you're being poisoned to death. The good news is that you can prevent it by knowing what caused it. Your air, your food, and your water. And it's very, very important to read and study and become knowledgeable. As caregivers for you and your family, it needs to be studied so that you'll know how to avoid how to drink water, what kind of water to drink, even shower water.
But
if it's
you know
not
what?
filtered.
Absolutely. In fact, there's a study at University of Pennsylvania which shows that polluted, contaminated water that you shower with is actually a good deal more toxic than that which you drink.
6 times more than drinking.
Because it goes straight in. There's nothing, it's not mediated by the stomach acids.
The skin is the largest organ in the body,
That's
and it
right.
absorbs this water. So your shower water has to be filtered as well as your drinking water.
You know, Burton, I think you are.
How else can you explain this Holocaust? There's no other explanation.
Oh, for sure. Well, there are. This is the basis, and I think what's coming up here is what I hope is going to be the subject of your next book, because we can treat cancer and all the other diseases naturally, but guess what? The causes are still there. The causes are still polluting our water, still polluting our air, and that's the real cause, and it seems to me that that's what we need as healthcare practitioners to uproot. We have to go straight to the corporations and deal with the very fabric of our economy.
We must become political. That's the bottom line here. Number one, we must allow our doctors to practice unimpeded in the state of New York. Fortunately, they have laws now allowing holistic physicians not to worry about being subjected to license removal by their peers. God bless them. The next thing is to get medical insurance, to pay for alternative therapies. My next book is about heart disease, and it'll be out this month. And bottom line, there was hardly any heart disease at the turn of the century. And today it's epidemic. What's causing it? Antioxidant deficiency, B6, B12, and folic acid.
Well, stress, which of course helps to create deficiencies of those vitamins in the body.
Always, they had stress coming in great quantities at the turn of the century. People walked up flights of stairs. They didn't have the elevators. They had cold water flats. There was plenty of aggravation. People worked 6 days a week. They worked 10 hours a day in the turn of the century. We always had stress.
No, I'm not saying that there is necessarily now
stress
more,
is always a factor. Stress is a factor in cancer. Stress
very much
affects
so.
the immune system.
Of course, as are the emotions factors.
But our food supply is denuded.
But what do you want to do? I hear what you're going to do about, I mean, I hope it's following, and I'm sure it is following in this extraordinary tradition that you have begun. But what about dealing with the real causes of, or let's say the physical causes of these diseases? What
We
do
are. The physical cause of the disease is a deficiency of antioxidants, which is God's way of putting a plaster cast around your blood supply, hardening of the arteries. Now, what causes it? When you don't have B6, B12, and folic acid, an amino acid called homocysteine takes over and creates a sticking to your arteries. It's like subclinical scurvy. In other words, if, when they went on a ship for 3 months and no one had any vitamins whatsoever, you immediately had scurvy, the blood supply fractionalized, and you bled internally to death. It was an agonizing disease.
And the tissues became acidified, actually. There wasn't enough vitamin C, etc.
Yeah. And then, the limeys, the British had a little bit of lime, and it meant that they didn't die immediately, but they had hardening of the arteries. That was the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. When we overcook our food, and our farmers throw chemicals at the crop so they look beautiful, the corn, but what's missing is a 1 part per million or trillion of selenium, molybdenum, chromium, and we don't have the nutritional supplements. So we must today take nutrient supplements. It is imperative. Otherwise we'll perish.
What are the kinds of therapies that are recommended or offered and described in your books?
For what disease?
For cancer.
Well, the number one thing you've got to do is detoxify, pull out the poisons, at the same time feed the body absorbable nutrients, because not everybody can absorb, they don't have enough hydrochloric acid in their body. Of course, when you have cancer, we go into 200 substances like the shark cartilage and SCAT and urea and
what has been your experience in traveling the country and meeting people, patients and doctors with SCAT for cancer treatment?
Well, that's only one of the aspects to boost the immune system. You need a physician. When you have cancer, don't try to self-medicate. Get this book. understand how the physicians treat it. Now, even if you're going with chemotherapy, we have a doctor in the book called Nagorny, and he's an MD oncologist in California. He takes the tissue of a biopsy, puts it in a test tube, and tells you which chemotherapeutic agent will work on your tumor. So you're not losing your hair and throwing up for nothing. Because in many cases, chemotherapy only works in 20% of the cases. So you don't want to lose your hair and throw up for zero. You want to get some results if you use it. And sometimes he uses low-dose chemotherapy, and he'll then give you substances to overcome the side effect of that chemotherapy. Most of our doctors do not use chemotherapy, and if they do, it's in low doses. And
well, if you've got a strong immune system, you are also going to be speeding the recovery, and even the work of someone we discussed recently, Peggy Huddleston, and preparing the mind, which is preparing the terrain for entering into a situation of medical therapy, invasion. Also helps to accelerate.
There's no question, the instant you're given the prognosis of cancer, your immune system goes into the basement.
It shoots down.
And I know, because I had that prognosis, and I know how I felt. You see, my mother and sister died miserable deaths of cancer, and I vowed to search the world to find those doctors who had some of the answers. And this book is the result. If I do nothing else the rest of my life, this book on cancer, Alternative Medicine, Definitive Guide to Cancer, it's 1,100 pages. It tells you that cancer can be reversed and how these doctors clinically use these therapies, not one. There are no magic bullet. That's why mainstream medicine is unsuccessful. And I found 37 doctors who are willing to talk and give of themselves spiritually, in spite of what their fellows thought of them. They had to go outside the box for help because they were finding that mainstream medicine wasn't working for them. Mainstream medicine gives you drugs, and these drugs have side effects. And I'll tell you how serious these side effects are. In 152,000 times a year, the side effect of drugs is death in the United States of America. Another 250,000 go to the hospital every single year. So it's very important to not use drugs with toxic side effects. And one of the reasons that the alternative physicians are successful is they use non-toxic substances. They'll use many different things to set the body right, to work with nature, with your God-given immune system.
Have you found that there is any particular treatment modality in your knowledge of many that has been unusually successful?
Yes, they all are. You see, in alternative medicine, each person's cancer is unique. You're like thumbprints. You can have the same diagnosis and your cause can be totally different than the other person's. In some cases, it's 100% mental. In some cases, only 20% mental. And it could be arsenic, chlordane, DDT. Now, how do we know that these substances are causing cancer? Because there are medical studies ignored by mainstream medicine. Let me give you an example, the Hartford Hospital. They discovered the relationship between pesticides and herbicides in female breast cancer. What they did is they excised the tumor, they sent it to pathology, it was cancerous, the other half to toxicology. Inside the tumor, they found DDT, DDE, and PCBs. In Florida, this older sailor's prostate was removed by a surgeon. Pathology said it was cancerous. Toxicology found arsenic, chlordane, and DDT in the fatty tissue of his prostate. This is why we say, America, you're being poisoned to death, that you have to understand this. Now, these things can be removed from the body homeopathically. So detoxification is essential. Dentistry is essential. Feeding the body's immune system. And there are 200 substances that our various doctors use. There's many roads to Rome. Nobody has all the answers. But I'll tell you this, that if you have cancer, you must arm yourself with this information. Or if you don't want to have cancer, you want to keep your family free, understand what the causes are, understand why they keep you in the dark. You know, most people say, if it was any good, my doctor would know about it. Your doctor is kept in the dark. The pharmaceutical companies You know what chemotherapy runs? $50,000. Another $50,000 to service it. It's paid by the insurance companies, by the states, and so forth and so on. Alternative medicine, overall cost for cancer is fraction of that. So you see, that's why they'll poo-poo it. Heart disease, we have a thing called chelation therapy. You can eliminate, in 90% of the cases, open heart surgery. There's a United States government study that open heart surgery in 90% of the cases is wasteful. Well, I know people say, but my husband had it, and my father had it, and I had it, and I no longer have pain to save my life. You know why you have no more pain? They cut the nerves when they do the surgery. The pain's still there. They're only taking care of 1 inch of the body, whereas in chelation therapy, a doctor puts a needle in the vein, the head to the toe is taken care of. You scrub the veins. I have a magazine on the newsstand called the Alternative Medicine Digest. In the last issue with Suzanne Summers, we cover how oral chelation can open it up, or intravenous chelation can scrub your veins and eliminate open heart surgery. There's a study in Denmark. Listen to this study. They had 72 people waiting for open heart surgery. They sent them all to chelation therapy, where the doctor puts a needle in the vein with an EDTA, an amino acid. You sit there for 2-3 hours. They had 65 people saved from open heart surgery. They had 26 diabetics with
out of 72.
Out of 72. They had 26 diabetics waiting for amputations. They sent them to chelation therapy. 2 amputations. Had they done it earlier, probably none. So it shows you how important it is, and of course, Main Street cardiologists will poo-poo and tell you this, that, and so forth. Don't believe them. Alternative medicine has some of the answers. In the big book, Alternative Medicine Definitive Guide, we have 208 health conditions with 50 different therapies. And that's what alternative medicine is about, a system of medicine with you have acupuncturists, and you have herbalists, and aromatherapists, and mind-body people, psychiatrists who do orthomolecular psychiatry, where you can change schizophrenia. That's how I got into this many years ago.
Yes, right.
So the point is that if the doctor tells you you have to live with pain, don't believe him. If he says you have to live with it, don't believe him. Somewhere in alternative medicine,
he doesn't know what to do. That's what it means.
Look at your options available in alternative medicine.
Absolutely.
It's being suppressed. Get that information and stay well.
God bless you, Burton Goldberg. Thanks so much for being on the show again.
It's a pleasure.
Really, I love your message. It's very powerful, and you're doing an incredible service for people all over the world with what you're writing up, what you're presenting, your research, and your
I'm
voice.
a medical journal bringing things from doctors who successfully reversed everything from headaches to bedwetting to cancer and arthritis.
So if you're a bedwetter, make sure to get this book. What is a phone number if people want to get more information about your work?
During working hours in the Pacific, call 800-333-HEAL, H-E-A-L, or 800-333-4325. But it's available in bookstores and health food stores all over America.
Sure.
And my magazine, Alternative Medicine Digest, is really worth looking at.
Wonderful. Thanks again. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Please feel free to call me at 212-420-0800. I love hearing from you. And so glad you joined us. We look forward to seeing you next week.
That was wonderful.
Good. Wonderful.